So last night, my wife of 7 years decided to have a chill out night. After dinner, she went to the den and was watching her programs, while I fitted between watching the Spurs games, football, soccer, and doing some odds and ends that I had planned. Next thing I know, she's got the wine out and has had 2 bottles of this stuff. Around midnight, I went to check on her and seen she was out cold on the couch. I went to scoop her up, and when her iWatch thing buzzed, a message popped up on screen. It said something along the lines of, "Haha, I can't do that. My name would knock 7 shades of shit out of me." Tongue face. I wonder what the fuck that was all about. So I pressed on it. It was a conversation between my wife and a friend of mine. And now I just wouldn't say this guy's a close friend of mine, but he's somebody I've played 5 aside of for years. Drank with him, known since we were teenagers. We used to call him jacket holder because when it got into the scraps as teens, he'd always be the guy holding the jackets while everyone else went for it. Right. So as I said, I pushed on the conversation while things still attached to her wrist and scroll up to the top as far as I can see. He contacts her first, unless she's deleted. There's lots of flirting and winking going on, but nothing I could outright say was cheating. Then I get to the last night. When she's drunk, she starts openly begging him for sex. I couldn't believe my eyes. I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact words she said. Was saying shit like how much she'd always wanted him, how no one would ever find out if he did. And something one night that just killed me, that she was great at keeping secrets. I tried to scroll on her watch but couldn't find any other messages, and I don't know her phone passcode. I put her into bed. I just sat in the kitchen in shock until I fell asleep. Then I got up for work at 5:30. When I went to get my work van, I just slunk down on the wheel, and I realized I couldn't face it. So I went back into the house, grabbed a half-drunk bottle of vodka, filled it to the top with Coke, and went for a walk down the railway line. We live beside a lot of woodland, and this railway line goes for miles, and I've walked about a half its length. I'm sitting under a railway bridge, like a fucking troll, now seething at the whole thing. You'd probably think there's a fire going from about a mile away due to the steam coming out of my ears. So what do? I don't want to speak to her. I can't even bear to look at her after reading that shit. It was like a dagger through my heart. Just like every morsel of love I had for her has evaporated into the air. After reading her begging like that, yuck. Honestly, want to ghost her, man. If I could, I would never speak to her again. The whole I'm great at keeping secrets was the thing that really got me though. Like, who are you even? It reeks, but it's a case of how far down the rabbit hole do I want to go. I don't care if I'm being honest, I'm just done. I've never felt so betrayed and disgusted in my life. The thing is, I've invested so much in her, not just as a partner, but as a person. I loved her so much, and thought her personality, by the extension my personality, reflected that of good people. To realize she's backstabbing snake makes me feel like a snake. I feel like a worse person than I was yesterday. The only way I can describe for someone you look up to, took advice and life lessons from, suddenly find out they were like someone terrible or like a downright creep. Your entire perception of yourself from who you were would be shattered because you took on board what they said, invested time into a creep. God, I'm rambling. I apologize. I'm lucky that in our house is owned by my parents, who 6 years ago moved to a retirement village. We moved in. The house will be bequeathed to me when they die, but I don't and hopefully won't own it for a long time. They couldn't be bothered with the upkeep and all the problems, etc., and wanted to see out their final days in peace. So when we do divorce, my soon-to-be ex won't be getting her hands on it. So what do I do then? Honestly, I'm thinking of not saying a word, throwing her outright. Also, while walking here, I went through my mind to get my mate, who's a locksmith, to quietly change the locks today. I could feed her any old garbage about something from the doors being broken. She won't care what's going on anyway, as long as I'm about. Then after he's done, lock the front door and tell her to come out and look at something. When she comes out, run back in and lock the door behind me. That sounds childish. Yeah, it does. Ugh, seriously, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm staring at a bottle right now, and my life feels like it's been ripped apart at the seams. As for that prick, so-called friend of mine, there is no doubt he was up to something here. There's also no doubt that I wouldn't have caught wind. This is all so I'll be seeing him very soon. Never mind holding jackets. He'll be holding his face. Wednesday, the 28th of October. Thank you everyone who reached out to me after my first post. It was really appreciated. So yesterday I'd written the post. It was a complete mess. 2 dog walkers came over to check on me. I was obviously concerning them. I told them everything. They listened. And the first thing one of them said was, "Son, the worst thing you can do right now is drink. It'll cause carnage." I have to thank her for that because I was on the highway to hell at that point. I threw the vodka away. Got in touch with a friend and he said I could come to his for a while to calm down. He was at work but told me where the spare key was. We live in a small town, around 15,000 people. He wasn't too far away, so once I got there I sat on his couch trying to calm down. Throughout the morning I was getting multiple texts and phone calls from my wife, asking me where I was and what the hell I was up to. Why my work van was still sitting in the driveway, and why I was nowhere to be seen. I texted her back telling her that there was a problem with the engine, so I got a lift to work, which she seemed to buy, as she texted back saying okay. When my friend got back from his work at about 5 o'clock, I told him everything that happened and asked him his opinion. I also told him not to tell everyone about jacket holder, as that might get back to my wife, which I didn't want at this point. I would deal with him later. By that I mean, I'll expose what a little rat he is. Knocking him the F out doesn't help me at all now. As a side for people saying that he's done nothing wrong, he messaged my wife first. He was being extremely flirty. What is he even playing at, messaging my wife? Or in the first place, he only knows her in passing from afar. Look, I've got no problems with adults having conversations with each other. They hardly knew each other, and it was flirty from the start. I think they've seen each other while out and about. It's gotten flirty then. So my friend convinced me to try and keep a low profile and see what I could dig up, but at the same time speak to a lawyer and get the ball rolling in terms of finding out my options, which I have done today. He took me home at about 6 o'clock, and I was honestly dead on my feet at that point. I think the adrenaline pumping the entire day, stopping and knocking it right out of you, was extremely tired when I got home. The second I walked through the door, I knew something was up with my wife. It was right on me right away, asking all sorts of questions about work. I asked her, why does she even care? She said that I'd left my big flask and my lunch bag in the front passenger side seat. Something's been up today, she could feel it. I was about to lie, but I was just too tired. I couldn't be bothered putting any sort of charade up. I said, yeah, there's something up. But when I was putting her drunk ass to bed last night, a message came up on her iwatch, which I read, and all the other ones, and that she was a disgusting cheat. I want nothing to do with her. Her demeanor went from arms crossed, in person of power, to scared little girl in about a second. Good at keeping secrets, eh? Begging that little rat for sex, yeah? Yep, I read it all. She started sobbing, and I just walked away. Upstairs into the shower. When I got out, she was sitting on top of the stair crying still, and the excuses started right away, how she was drunk, vulnerable, had never done anything like that before. How he had messaged her first, and it didn't mean anything. She was never going to go through with it. Pretty much everything that everyone on here was saying they would say. Like, she had the playbook out, and the only thing she didn't do was try to blame me. She probably knew I would have thrown her right out the door if she'd have tried that shit. I told her that I wanted a divorce, and her out of the house within a month. I still told her that she was moving to the spare room. I've been plenty much ignoring her since, just scowling at her, shaking my head when she starts waffling nonsense. I don't want to hear it. She slept in the spare room last night, and I haven't spoken to or texted with her all day. If I'm lucky, maybe she'll be gone when I get back from work. But my luck's not so good, I suppose, on getting her out. I was telling my parents that what was happening, and my mother was adamant I wasn't throwing her out on the streets. Her and my mother are close, and have always been. We'd been together 11 years in December. My mother was saying that she had a mistake, and that we should sort it out like adults. We've been through so much together. And that she didn't actually do anything, it was just words. She completely took her side over mine. Couldn't believe it. Could this mess with me here? Like, do I have no right to ask her to leave? My mother is against it. Literally going to be my house when my parents pass, and I did nothing wrong. So I'm not leaving. It's probably going to turn into War of Roses Part 2. I managed to get myself an appointment for a divorce lawyer for the next week, so I'll be going to discuss my options. Until then, I'm just going to ignore my soon-to-be ex-wife, I guess. I know she'll probably not going to admit anything else. I'll never know if she was really a good liar, or she kept talking shit to him to get on side with her for an affair. Anyway, sorry about the delay in the updates. Just got a chance to write now as I'm finished work. Well, back to the funhouse, I guess. On the 16th of November? Well, it's been 20 days since I found out my wife was trying to cheat on me with my friend. The situation has become hellish. I gave her a month to get out, and she's been sleeping in the spare room, but it's clear now she doesn't have any intention of going away. She got in my mother's ear. She doesn't have anywhere to go at any rate, but it's not my problem. I've seen divorce lawyers multiple times, and now I'm in the process of drawing up a divorce petition and having my wife serve divorce papers. I've also opened my own bank account and taken 50% of the balance from our shared account. The atmosphere around the house has been weird, to say the least. The living room has turned into no man's land, where no one frequents, as we both spend the majority of our time in our rooms. I've also intentionally been working late a lot, so I don't have to interact with her much. I've been completely ignoring her, but after reading about the 180, I started implementing that and have been civil, if a little cold towards her. I'm so glad I did this, as this was when I was beginning to feel like a monster refusing to acknowledge her existence. It was not the right way to behave, and I ended up feeling like the one who wronged her, rather than the other way around. The only time I broke from the 180 was when I walked into her bathroom last week, and she was sitting on the floor by the bath crying. I helped her up, and instinctively gave her a hug. It was more of a there type hug, than one with much love attached to it. The sad thing is, I'm so suspicious of her now, that I wouldn't put it past her to be waiting on me, coming in. She could be putting on a performance. The thing is, probably isn't true. But this is the sort of stuff that's going through my head in this environment. It's just toxic. She's been cowering about how she'll do anything and everything to save this marriage. Anything to prove to me that it was just a silly mistake. So I brought up a lie detector test. I didn't plan on ever getting one done. Wouldn't even know where to start. I just wanted to gauge her reaction. She was all for it. Well, until a few hours later when she came to me, tablet in hand, go on about how inaccurate they are, and the anxiety and nervousness can throw up false readings, and that her and her anxiety disorder and all. I just laughed. Wasn't even a normal little chuckle either. I started as a bit of a cackle, then ended as a childish giggle. It appears she would do everything to save this marriage. Well, except for take a lie detector test, that is. Doesn't appear to matter anyway. I mean, as I said in my OP, every morsel of love I had for her has dissipated into the atmosphere after I read her say those horrible things. I don't see her as my true love anymore. Person I could tell anything to and would trust with my life. I just see trash. Trash that needs to be taken out before it stinks up the place. Jacket Holder has been the talk of the town since I exposed him to our friend group a few weeks back. It's safe to say he has no friends left among us, has completely been ostracized. I tried phoning him a couple of times, but he refused to answer, then blocked my number. Fuck that little rat. I hope it was worth it. I've spoken to my mother multiple times about this, and doing a heated argument asking her why she was taking my wife's side. Like there was something she wasn't telling me here? What was she expecting us to live like roommates? Go on like nothing happened? It's ridiculous. She said she's always seen my wife as a daughter. She never had always wanted. My mother had a stillborn daughter before I was born, and it haunted her, so she latched onto my wife, and has done since that we got together. As I previously said, they had a close bond. In fact, my wife doesn't have any family, and only a few friends who have their own busy lives and family. It means I threw her out. She would be all alone, and my mum thinks that's unacceptable, especially during the pandemic. She tried to get me to come in and compromise, saying that in 3 to 4 months we can look at it again. Since where we mentally, and is pushing me to try couples counselling before I throw the towel in, I'm not doing that. The thought of being in the same house as my wife over Christmas makes me feel ill. She'll want to do it, right, as she does every year. It'll be a complete shit show. My dad, God love him, has never been much of a talker. Never up nor down, just always there. He's quiet, proud, but timid man. And my mother's word has always been the one that matters in our house. People on here have been telling me that I'm selfish and spoiled because it's not my house and I have no right to make beds. But it's now a case of my wife for me or my parents. If comes to worse, then I'm ready to walk out the door and never come back. Screw this house. I have to be able to look after myself. I have to be able to look at myself in the mirror with some semblance of self-respect, and someone has to keep their word in this debate. If I do leave, my friend has said that I can stay with him for a few weeks or till I get myself sorted. If I do walk out that door though, I'm done with my parents. I'll never speak to them again in my life. They'll probably see it as me giving up on them, me walking away without trying at least to have a go at fixing things. I see it as them choosing someone who broke my heart over. Excuse me. Like, what are the logistics of this once I'm gone? Just her staying here, my mother and father, after looking at it backstabber while their flesh and blood goes off alone? A little more info on the house. My parents let us move in a year after our wedding. It was a parent belated wedding gift, although that was just chatter from them at the time. They were always planning on moving out and moving us in. I spent tens of thousands on it over the years, but that's neither here nor there. I have fantasies of leaving it all behind and going somewhere new and starting again, but I don't have anywhere else to go. I've lived in this town my entire life. It's all I know. Am I being too harsh here? I'm literally ready to slingshot my parents right out of my life, but I feel so torn. Why am I the one who has to lose everything and everyone? I've tried to be good. I thought you make your own luck, and good things happen to good people. Maybe I'm not as good as I think I am. Maybe I deserve all I get. Wednesday, December 22nd. Well, since this morning, I no longer call that house home. I seen on the calendar that my wife had a hospital appointment with her ophthalmologist, and knowing she would have gone for a few hours, I took that opportunity to get my stuff together and move out, which I have. After getting my things moved out and sorted, I just put the house keys on the kitchen table, along with divorce papers I received from the lawyer, and I was on my way. I blocked both my wife and my mother, and communications I have with my wife all will be done through my lawyer. In terms of my living situations, I'm currently with a friend for a week or two, but hopefully I should be on my own rented place before Christmas. I haven't spoken with my parents in a few weeks. Last time we spoke was via text. I tried to tell my mother in explicit detail the things my wife was saying during her text. Why it hurt me so much. Why I didn't think it was her first time doing it. The whole "I'm good at keeping secrets" comment, and thus could never trust her again. My mother texted back, saying she could speak to me. She couldn't speak to me when I was like this, and she would let me cool off. She tried to phone me a few days ago, and I just blanked her call. And as I said a bit further up, since today I've blocked her number. I feel so let down by my parents, and at this point, it almost feels worse than the original betrayal from my wife. The way I'm feeling right now, I don't think I'll ever speak to them again. I think times of strife, you look to your family to be strong for you, to be a rock for you, give you the wronged one the support. My parents have been weak. They've made me feel like the one in the wrong, like I'm overreacting, and it's me that's ripping this family apart. Well, it's not. I didn't ask them to move mountains for me. Just move my cheating wife out of the house, and they made their choice. My father also had the chance to put his foot down for once in his life and stand up for me, but he didn't. You make your choice and you live with him, I guess. Reading some of the comments from here on my previous post, people have been saying things like I threw the towel in so easily, I was looking for a way out, I didn't love my wife because I didn't try hard enough to save things, but it's not true. I love my wife more than anyone on this earth, and I was broken when I discovered what she was doing. I think we all have boundaries, and once those boundaries have been crossed, things change irrevocably. And when I read those horrible texts, something changed inside of me. I felt a love from her, and like being snapped out of a spell in movies. Just tired, delaying the inevitable. I have to say that I'm interested in the whole dynamic of their relationship now I'm gone. Like, are my parents going to continue supporting her, knowing that it has finished their relationship with their son? As for me, I'd love to travel. My wife hated flying, so most of our holidays have been in southern England, in the likes of Newquay, and Torquay and Cornwall, and Devon. So, would be great to travel abroad again. The last time I was abroad was when I was 20 for mate's holiday in Greece, so 13 years ago. I'd love to see a bit of America. Once this pandemic calms down, I'm definitely got my sights on the States. Well, that's about it for me, I guess. It's been my last post. I don't want to outstay my welcome. I don't think there's much more to say at any rate. If you want to know how I'm doing down the line, shoot me a DM. I'll try to keep in the loop. Thanks for reading. Bye. And there's an update on May the 26th. It's been over 7 months since I first posted on Reddit, and I honestly thought it was for me, so I didn't need any more advice. I'd made my decisions and I was done, but I said I would. But I got a phone call this morning that has dragged me back into the mire. I moved 15 miles away, changed my phone number. I'm still in the process of divorcing my wife. She's completely ignored all the requests from my lawyer to cooperate, which has hindered things. We're now in the process of putting in an application for deemed service, trying to have her served officially by the courts. She continues to ignore. Then I can proceed with the divorce without her input. Well, this morning at work I got a call from a friend telling me that my dad was trying to get in touch. My mother is not well. Would it be okay to give him my number? I said okay. Dad phoned to tell me my mum was in hospital. She's stable though, not great. Obviously I was shocked. I've not heard my dad's voice for so long. It's also the most emotional I've ever heard him. He told me mum really wants to see me, so I would meet him at the hospital tonight and go in and see her with him. I said okay. I've arranged to meet him outside the hospital. I ended up going home from work as I couldn't concentrate. I'm climbing the walls here wondering if I've made the right decision. Wondering if I'm about to get dragged back into this shit show. I walked away from. I've never felt so nervous in my life, and lack of control have over the situation set my mind spiraling in lots of different directions. I felt like I'm walking into a burning building blindfolded, where no exits are. Why does she want to speak to me now? Has she a change of hearts? Unless she's also had a personality transplant while I'm here. I find that unlikely. Will my wife be there? I've no interest in seeing her again. I'm still angry about what transpired with them. The way they took my cheating wife's side over mine. I've been going back and forth in my head. They're going at it all. But I will go. I was thinking about seeing if she wanted to speak over the phone instead, but I'm not sure how that would go or even if she's well enough. I feel like the bad guy here, and that I might have caused this from walking away. How would you handle this? It's not your fault from walking away, mate. You gotta look after yourself as well. Saturday, May the 29th. So, I did end up going to the hospital on Wednesday night after much to-ing and fro-ing. I was generally about to back out at last minute as I felt my bottle crashing, but I needed some closure to know. I wouldn't forgive myself if I didn't go and something happened. When I drove into the car park hospital, I had this surreal feeling of paranoia. I was half expecting my wife to jump out from behind a bush or something. I met my dad at the entrance. It was pretty awkward as he tried to hug me and I said no. Then I said if my wife was here in any way, shape or form, I'm about turning out that door. He assured me she wasn't and made our way to the ward where mum was. When I saw my mother, I got the fright of my life. She looked like she'd been in the wars. Never have I seen her look so frail. She got this extreme black eye, lots of bruising and purple yellowness down the side of her face. She took a serious fall. Broke 2 ribs, shattered an elbow, banged on the side of her head on the ground. So elbow, ribs, then head in that order? Wow. She looked zombified, but perked up when she saw me. She told me how much she misses me, that she wasn't sure she'd ever see me again. I told her if she really wanted to get a hold of me, she could have done. We spoke for a bit about exactly what had happened, and how she was down for a few hours before my dad found her. Also, she was determined to get back to normal and mend bridges with me. I brought up my wife, and that I'd been pushing for divorce, but she was ignoring the letters and wasn't getting them, so I asked if she was still in the house. Mum admitted she was, and Dad started looking uncomfortable. I looked away in disgust. Mum started saying she lost my wife, is without me, and that she's not in a good way. I knew then that nothing will change. She's not had an epiphany or seen things from a new perspective. She just wants to put status quo back. She said that the house is my house and always will be, but I told her that I don't want it. It means nothing to me anymore, and all it holds are bad memories. I stayed for under an hour all in all, and when I left, I said if I want to get in contact I will, but don't be waiting on over the phone for me to call, as you might be waiting a while. Then Dad walked away. He asked if I would keep in touch with him, and I said I would. Whether it's a right or wrong, I don't know. Time will tell. When I got home, my emotions were a bit all over the place, from sadness to anger, but I'm glad it went. Couldn't help but think about my wife as well, and what she once meant to me. It'll never not hurt. When I think about everything that all happened in the last 7 months, honestly, it doesn't feel real. The speed at which everything fell apart is just spellbinding. I know my life comes to you fast, especially when you're not paying attention and more. I never saw the signs or put everything together. I just saw something on her watch and it tore my life apart. I now know that it wasn't the only time. I know it in my heart. I see what she is and I feel no love for her, only contempt. I feel she stole the best years of my life. When I think about it, all the good times, they're just soured. It feels like somebody else's life, not mine. My friend was saying I should see a therapist or something to try to let everything out, or else this will fundamentally change who I am. And the way I build relationships going forward, that's something I'm going to do, I think. As I do feel a bit broken inside. The last 7 months have been the worst of my life, but I'd rather they happen than be kept in dark. I'm just hurt that it'll happen the way they did. But you can't choose the way someone fucks you over, I suppose. You just have to learn from it. I remember reading about loyalty and being the undervalued character trait and seeing how that is now. It's probably because you don't really know if somebody's truly loyal until they're not. It's just something you deal with every day. But now more than ever, I know how important that trait is. End of post. Tuesday. Firstly, I'm now in the home stretch of terms of divorce from my wife. She has signed the divorce papers and sent them to my divorce lawyer, so that all that's left now are the formalities. She sent me a message via my dad, where she said she's sorry for not letting me move on, and that she thought she could save things, but now knows she can't, and she has to move on for her own well-being. I thank her for seeing sense. She doesn't want anything in the divorce, and said she's going to move out of the house when she can get on her feet, which I'm okay with. In terms of my mother, I haven't spoken to her yet, but my dad said she's doing a lot better after getting out of the hospital and getting some normality back. I don't know how things will pan out with them, but I've said that the house is going to be mine. Then I want them to put it into my name now to give me some security. Then they can start trying to build bridges. We'll see how that goes. My biggest battles ahead are in my head. I'm trying to get over everything that's happened. My brain is a wonderful yet frightening thing. To give you an example, I can still taste the truffles I scoffed then threw up at my gran's house when I was like 5. I've never eaten truffles again, but I can still taste those things 30 years later. When I think about what I'm getting at is, I don't want to harbor thoughts or feelings and opinions about everything that's happened 30 years down the road. I don't want to be one of those older people who's had everything good knocked out of them by the pain of life. You often hear those people, how they used to be good, kind or funny, but somewhere along the lines, they've had experience that forever changed them, turned them into a person they never wanted to be. All in all, that's left is pain. I don't want to be that person. I have to let the pain go before it consumes me. I've started therapy, I've spoken to a psychiatrist, both over the phone and in person. It has helped me a lot to speak candidly about everything, if only for a little while. My psychiatrist also said something to me that really stuck a chord. When I was moaning about how my best years were behind me, she said, your best years are the years you've got left. And, oh my eyes. What I think she meant is the past is gone and doesn't exist except in your mind. But here and now does. And you can choose to make the most of it, or live in the past isn't real to anyone but you. It's definitely a phase that I'm going through. Try and remember when I feel down. I said in one of the previous posts I wanted to travel, and it's finally happening. My friend is committed to coming with me, and we're booking our flight to New York in the beginning of October for a week. Really looking forward to it. Always wanted to see New York. When the leaves a change. It reminds me of that movie, You've Got Mail. I want this to be just the beginning of my adventures in terms of traveling. I want my later 30s to be littered with memories from it. Escapades I've had abroad. Well, that's the plan anyways. All I know is that for the first time what seems like a long time, I'm waking up with hope in my heart. I'm walking away with spring in my step. If that's not progress, then I don't know what is. End post. Wednesday, October 27th. Well, it's now been a year since my first Reddit post, so I thought it would be fitting to give the one last update to end things here. First things first, I'm now officially divorced. Feels like a weight's been lifted, but also a firm end to what was nearly a third of my life. I actually saw my ex-wife for the first time since December. I was walking into a shop in town, seen her a month back after visiting a friend. She was opening the door to walk out, so I was walking in. We're both wearing masks, but I noticed it was her right away. We made eye contact. She mumbled something that I couldn't make out. And we just sort of stared at each other for a few seconds. Then I walked inside. As I was walking around the shop, I had this utter feeling of sadness just enveloped me. I had to take a minute to compose myself. It just goes to show, all it takes is one look for you to feel straight back to square one. Do I miss her? No. I miss the person I thought she was, but that person doesn't exist anymore, if she ever did. I don't wish her to hurt or hardship though. I really don't. I just refuse to move forward any longer with hatred in my heart. The only personal burden in the long run is me. I also found out that from a friend's girlfriend. She was sure that my ex-wife was outside of a pub in the city, all over a couple of guys a couple of years back. Apparently she'd never said anything to me or a friend because she wasn't sure if it was her. And she didn't really want to meddle. I'm extremely pissed off with her, as I could have been done with that information with that years ago. Hardly conclusive, but I could have confirmed if it was her that night. Would have saved me a lot of heartache in the long run. Now I know why I've never liked her. One of the reasons why we wanted to book the flight in New York in October, apart from wanting to see the New York autumn, was that the travel ban between the USA and the UK was supposed to be lifting in September. Fully vaccinated travellers. Unfortunately, it's now been moved back to November, which is, put our plans on limbo. My friend also can't get the time off work now until the new year. So if I'm to go then, I'll have to go alone, which is a bit of a shame since we were both invested in going together. I'm pretty set on going in the new year with him, though I'll have to think of things through more thoroughly. One thing the pandemic has consistently been able to do is throw up curveballs, so I really can't complain or say I'm surprised. I'll get there though, by hook or by crook. This thing's just the start of my journey. In that regard, remember? I'm struggling when it comes to my parents, and all that I feel towards them is complete apathy. I'm just having difficulty time feeling anything, and no matter how hard I try, I just don't think that'll change. My dad has tried to build back the relationship again, but I just don't care anymore. That might sound harsh, but it's the truth. I said in my last post that I wanted them to put the house in my name, though I haven't followed up on that. I think I was just angry at that time, wanted to assert some dominance at the onset of the conversation, but I really couldn't give a fuck about that house. I think I would rather live in the house of nightmare from Elm Street than live there. It wouldn't change anything anyway. I can't turn back time unless it's turned into a time traveling house since I've gone or circumvented what they did. It's just a sad consequence of the choices they made. To anyone out there thinking of forgive a cheater, please don't. I implore you, you're flogging a dead horse. Don't be a person desperately scrambling to put out fires started by your cheater partner while gleefully reigniting them. I feel stronger than ever after everything that's happened, and reading a lot of infidelity support forums in the last year that you are letting yourself in for a world of hurt if you don't cut your losses. Kind of a relevant story, but at the start of the year, I had a really scary experience when I cut the back of my trouser leg on a metal bin, brushing against it at work. I never realised it had caused a cut until I went home, and I went to bed that night. I felt kind of weird. I woke up at 2 a.m, my leg was pulsing, I felt deathly ill, was doubling, dizzy, alternating between severe fever and chills. I understood right away that this could be sepsis, so I phoned an ambulance, which was said that would be 2 hours plus. It was a Friday night, the height of COVID, and my thoughts were doing light speed laps around the house. I was hyperventilating like crazy. Do you know the only thing that calmed me down when I was freaking out? I accepted that I'm possibly going to die, and then for some reason, I didn't feel afraid anymore. I don't know if it was the whole accepting fate state of my mind when I accepted that it might be over. I took over the new missions out of the equation, and everything just came very simple and calm. I've been thinking about a lot lately, and I think about cheating betrayal. I feel very similar. You have to accept what you've had is over. It's long gone. If someone is willing to plunder such depths and stab you in the back so mercilessly for their own gratification, fighting an unwinnable battle is noble and all, but when you're pissing into the wind with lottery odds of success, is it worth it? Is it worth the pain? I don't think so. I understand everyone has their own situations with kids, etc., but some fights are just straight up folly. Accept it's over, and things will quickly become clearer. That's just my view. It's only after we've lost everything that we're free to do anything. Tyler Durden Fight Club. It's funny I haven't written about my thoughts and feelings since I was in high school. I work roofs for a living. This experience though has coaxed that side of me out. A side that I'd pretty much forgotten existed. If something good has come from this fiasco, is that I'm not going to bottle things up any longer. It's been cathartic for me to get things out there and seeing a bigger picture for my situations. Writing things down has helped me more than I ever imagined. So it's something I'm going to continue to do, even if it's just writing to myself in a journal or a notepad. I think there's instances of your life where, all said and done, you can put a pin in and say, things were on a knife edge that day and could have gone either way. I shudder to think what would have happened if I'd not reached out for help on there, or seen those dog walkers. I'd likely been blackout drunk at Deb's store in some ditch somewhere, or in jail for firing Danger, aka jacket holder straight through a window frame after going through his house like a tornado. Honestly, it frightens me to think of where I'd ended up, or if things had gone south. I was not in a good way, and being drunk, embarrassed, incandescent with rage is a combination that can cause chaos whenever you cut it. In the end, I'm just happy I made it out to the other side without hurting myself or someone else. Most of my posts have been about the ins and outs of what had happened, and however, I think in the last few have been more about how I feel towards what's happening. Betrayal just renders such passionate and invasive thoughts. There's no action on this earth quite like it. Being stabbed in the back, people that you love, in many ways so unique. The emotions you feel after it are the same token, equally unique. So, cheers for hearing me out. I said on my first post, after firing out, the worst pain was yesterday. Well, everything has happened. I feel like a stronger one too. Thank you for reading my story. And he leaves a quote. I know what I've got to do now. I've got to keep breathing because tomorrow the sun will rise. Who knows what the title could bring? C. Noland, Castaway. There's a couple of interesting comments. Just like commenting on things that were read throughout the story. Awi Kawabunga says, do I miss her? No, I miss the person who I thought she was. I've never been through anything even as close as to what Op went through. But I've had this feeling before and it just leaves you feeling empty and hopeless. Scumbagged friend says, in reply to this, the switch he speaks of, the minute I found out my ex was cheating, there was no starting over or forgiveness. I tried for a bit, but when I realized every time I saw him I got sick to my stomach. It wasn't worth the energy on my part. I'm really pissed at Op's parents though. You take a cheating wife's side instead of your son? Seriously. People, she scammed you. And we've got a small story from the government. This rings bells. I had a wonderful 15 years with my ex. Then suddenly, by accident, found out she had been cheating on me for 4 years. At first, I thought it was a mistake, and we could do counselling and get past it. Then I realised that she doesn't make a mistake. She wanted that, and it was clear from the evidence I saw. I just refused to believe it at first. Then the realisation and the pain of realising that the person I thought she wasn't. And then I was completely in the dark. Then realising all the little clues along the way that I never picked up on, but subconsciously did, since I remember them now. Before, but now makes sense. Then the pain of realising that the little nicknames, the inside jokes, the travel, the laughs, the looks, the things that were so distinctly ours are all gone. That hurt me more than the loss of the relationship. I even hoped for an apology or something. Or that she'd tell me that someone from her past contacted her and she wanted to see it was going and could have taken a break or something. Though, knowing me, a break would mean that I'm done. But at least, giving it a chance, but no. In retrospect, it's weird for me to think about things. I thought the reasons I had to try to make it work. Even thinking I had anything to do with me. Now I'm on the downhill of things and I realise that it's what's best for me. 33% of my life spent with her. Obviously it'd be painful separation. But at least now I can do a little living and just be myself. Yeah, it seems like this is not really the only story that people have experienced along these lines. This was a nice long story from Up. Unfortunately, this is from, I think it's a throwaway account now, but it's _court watch. And they originally posted in Relationship Advice in 2020.